You know, one of the sayings that I always heard growing up was things always even out in the end. If you have a great year one year, you know, the next year you better save a little bit of that income that you make because the next year might not be so good. And you know, looking at these couple of years here, we had good prices for our grain last year or this past season, and we had opportunities to market our crop for a good price. And we had, looking at today's pricing, relatively low input costs.
Okay, that's enough talking about some of these things that are depressing. As crop prices have gone down, input costs have gone up. The fact of the matter is, on a lot of farms, for this one year, and maybe even next year too, but for this one year, farm income actually was pretty good. So rather than pay a big tax bill this year and then in the next couple years not pay much of a tax bill at all, you as a farmer have the opportunity to basically income average if you want to. Now there are different ways to do this. The way we like to do it and the way most farmers do it on their farms is by prepaying expenses. You see, as farmers, we're one of the few businesses that there are out there that can actually use a method of accounting called cash accounting. So if it's an expense and we physically have a specific product at a specific price in a specific quantity, we can deduct that fully from our income tax. Now, there are a couple of qualifications to this. First of all, you're not supposed to prepay over 50% of your total expenses on the farm. But those total expenses include depreciation. So if you figure all your total expenses, let's say you had $500,000 total expense on your farm this year, you can prepay up to $250,000. Now, please see your tax advisor.
Yeah, I was just going to say, Brian
consultant.
is not a CPA, so let's just have that little disclaimer right now. But we do farm, and we're telling you some of the things that are impacting our farm that certainly apply to your farm as well.
You can prepay for seed. You could also prepay for chemical, fertilizer, any of those farm inputs that you're going to be using in your fields this next year. That's great. The only thing is you have to make sure you're paying, again, for a specific product at a specific price and a specific quantity. If you just give, let's say, $20,000 to your seed dealer, that doesn't count. You will not get that as a deduction for this year. It has to be specific items.
Now you may be saying, wait a minute, I don't know, the corn market and the bean market are moving all around and I haven't really figured out exactly how many acres of corn or beans or wheat or sunflowers or whatever crop I'm going to plant. I don't know exactly my mix, and that's fine. You can take a guess right now and say, you know what, I think this is how I'm going to split my acres up and prepay accordingly. It's perfectly legal to make changes before spring. You say, you know what, boy, the corn market took a dive and I want to shift more acres into wheat or something like that. You can do that. It's perfectly legal. And with most seed companies, talk about this in advance when you prepay, but with most seed companies, you can say, you know what, I don't need quite as much corn. I may need more soybeans or more sunflowers, or I may need some wheat seeds, something like that. You can make those changes. It's perfectly legal.
It's legal, but the whole thing is if the seed company or chemical company or fertilizer company will allow you to do that. So you've got to make sure you're checking into that ahead of time. There aren't a lot of dealers who will do this out there, but there are some who will allow you to switch and still get that early price. You can switch from seed to chemical or over to fertilizer or whatever. You just have to make sure you know what you're doing there. Get all the parameters first, because quite frankly, you're putting this money out and you're trusting that 4 months or 6 months down the road, they're going to take care of you. And that's, I guess, the biggest watch out with this whole prepay thing. Make sure you know where that money is going to and that they are financially stable.
The other thing you may be considering prepaying is equipment. And there are some different rules. Equipment is not the same as some of the crop inputs that we talked about. You can't just automatically deduct 100%. So you do need to talk to your CPA because there are some specific rules when it comes to equipment. It's another thing you can definitely prepay before the first of the year.
So once again, we do believe in prepaying. You want to prepay as much as you possibly can to delay your tax bill as many years as possible, just so you get to use that operating money rather than let the government use it for many years. Just make sure you know who you're prepaying to, that they are financially sound, and they'll allow you to switch things back and forth with seed, chemical, and fertilizer and specific product choices come spring.
Well, we'll talk about some of those product choices that relate to controlling our weed of the week. It's coming up next.